Hey, church, today is February 24th. That means we're in chapter 24. This starts with Paul's trial in Caesarea. They've been waiting for this high priest, Ananias, to come. And at the beginning of chapter 24, he comes. He brings some of the council elders, and he also brings a lawyer named Tertullus. And so he comes. Next day, the hearing starts. And we see at the very beginning of this kind of court hearing that Tertullus starts off accusing Paul of just being this mean person, this outside person that's tried to cause all this ruckus. But he also blamed him for being blasphemous and saying these profane things inside the temple, which are just not true, but was a very serious charge, even to the penalty of death. But Paul defends himself to the governor. But in his defense, what seems kind of counterproductive here, in his defense to the governor, he tells the governor, he says, I am a Christian. I do believe in Jesus. I do believe in God. I am a Jew. I do believe in the prophets. I do believe in the Old Testament. And it's one of these things that you're kind of like, should you have really said that? But he really did, because what he knew was true. He went on to tell the governor, look for witnesses. No one has ever seen me inside of the temple doing all these things, because when Paul went to the temple, when he was inside the temple, he was doing what a normal Jew would do. He would have prayer, he would worship, he would sacrifice. But when he left outside of the temple, on the temple courts, that's where he would teach about Jesus. That's not the problem. They were accusing him of saying Jesus is greater inside the temple, which was just a false statement. So Paul explains all of this and basically said, I was minding my own business when I was inside of the temple, but some of these Jews from Asia came and started saying all these lies and everything, and that's kind of how everything started. So through this trial, as everything's going on, we see that he's still in prison, but now this governor named Felix gets involved. Felix is a popular man. He knows a lot about Jesus. He's had a lot of Christians around, and it's kind of one of those things that he's a little curious with. And so he puts Paul in jail, and because he knows Christians and he kind of knows of Paul, he gives him some freedom in jail. He gets the bigger cell, lets him walk around, he's not in handcuffs. And so he's a little bit nice to him. But we see in the next verse, it says he was in jail for 2 years. For 2 years, Governor Felix put him in jail, would bring him up to talk to him and his wife, to talk about Jesus, and then he would send him back. And maybe a month or two later, he would bring him back up. And we see this goes on, back and forth for about 2 years. And so this whole idea of Felix isn't convinced, he's not believing in Christ, he's not Christ following, and basically he keeps doing this because he's waiting for Paul to bribe him. Felix knows that Paul is in the right. He's been set up. What he's telling is true, and he's waiting for Paul to give him a bribe so that he would accept the bribe, get rich, and let him out of jail. But Paul never stooped to that low. He did what was right, and so basically he stays in jail until Felix retires. And when Felix retires, we see that a new governor named Festus takes over, and Paul stays in jail. And that's at the very end of chapter 24. What this shows me is all this time through these courts and these trials, all these things that are happening, Paul has so many times, it could have been so easy to just deny Christ. Just to say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm not teaching about Jesus. I'll never teach about Jesus again. But Paul remains faithful. Guys, that's what we need to do. Sometimes it's not easy to be a Christian. Sometimes it's not easy to follow Christ. But we're always called to be faithful. And we have to remain faithful. Today's prayer focus is be praying for our students in our church. Be praying for our students. That's our elementary, our middle school, and our high school students. That they would be faithful. That they would be great Christians. That God would give them opportunities. Pray for the administrators and the principals and the superintendents and the teachers in those schools. Just don't pray for Webb City. We have students in Carthage, in Webb City, in Carl Junction. We have students in Jasper, and we have students in Joplin. So be praying for all those schools, and that God would open doors. Be praying for those school boards as politics go through. There's always things coming on, that they would make right decisions that are great for our kids, that are great for our communities, and that are God-honoring. And be praying for our college and our university students, all of our students, the ones that are here with us at MSSU and Crowder, and the colleges that are close. OCC, but also be praying for the students who are away. We have college students all over the place. Be praying for this college ministry that Pastor Tim is kind of heading up. Next Tuesday, we'll start out kind of being starting our college coffee shop and meeting with those students and helping them with schoolwork and worshiping with them and sharing them a quick devotion of letting them know that God does have a plan for their life. Lots of things are happening in our church. Lots of things are happening for our students. Be praying for those people. Be praying for those students that they would become great Christians and be the next leaders of our church. Guys, we are almost there. If you hang in a couple more days, we will finish our 28 days. Looking forward to tomorrow. See you tomorrow. God bless.